The twin suns of Caldera Prime burned low in the sky, casting long, twisted shadows across the red-brown plains. The planet was a frontier world, wild and untamed, a place where humans had built a life against impossible odds. Dust storms rolled over the horizon like ocean waves, and the wind carried the scent of hot metal and scorched earth. Elias Ward rode at the front of a small convoy, his long coat flapping in the wind. His eyes, sharp and steady, scanned the horizon constantly. Beside him rode Mara Kincaid, her face pale but resolute under the wide brim of her hat. She clutched a small, metallic case tightly, one that hummed faintly with the energy inside. That case held the secret to the colony's survival, or its destruction. "Are you sure this is the safest route?" Mara asked, her voice low. She was not used to travel like this. Life in the labs of the colony was quiet and controlled. The wilds of Caldera Prime were not. Elias gave her a small, reassuring smile, though his mind never stopped working. "It's the least risky path," he said. "Short, fast, and keeps us away from the main trade routes. Fewer eyes on us." Mara nodded, but the tension in her shoulders remained. She had heard the rumors aliens from the Lyrax coalition had been seen on the outer plains, demanding humans surrender valuable technology. If they discovered the device she carried, Elias sensed her fear, and he hated it. Not because he couldn't face it himself, but because he couldn't let her face it alone. Humans had survived worse on Earth, and they had survived worse in space. What set them apart was not strength or firepower, it was heart. The ability to stand for one another when everything else failed. They rode in silence for a while. Dust kicked up behind their hover horses, glowing faintly in the light of the setting suns. The convoy was quiet too. A few settlers and traders, their eyes tired but determined. They were human through and through, adaptable, stubborn, unwilling to give up even when the universe seemed to conspire against them. As the shadows grew longer, Elias spotted movement on the horizon. Small, dark shapes. Moving fast. Too fast to be human. He slowed his mount and signaled for the convoy to halt. "Aliens?" Mara whispered. "Could be scouts," Elias said, narrowing his eyes. "Could be nothing, but we can't take the risk." The shapes drew closer. They moved like a single organism, fluid and precise. Elias felt a familiar tension in his chest. It was the kind of tension that told him every decision mattered. One mistake, one hesitation, and the people he had sworn to protect could be gone in moments. "Keep calm," he said, almost to himself. "We do what we have to." Mara shifted nervously. "Elias, what if they take me? What if they—" Her voice broke. He looked at her, and for the first time, his usual calm faltered. "Then, I make sure they don't." That was the truth of Elias Ward. He had walked through dust storms, firefights, and alien ambushes. He had seen the worst of humanity and the worst of other species. Yet he never wavered when someone relied on him. Today would be no different. The shapes revealed themselves as alien scouts. Their forms sleek and gray, their eyes glinting like molten metal. They did not speak. They did not pause. They were curious, calculating, and very dangerous. Elias raised his hand slowly. "Do not make any sudden moves," he whispered. He glanced at Mara. "Stay close." The aliens stopped a few dozen meters away. One of them tilted its head, as if assessing the humans. Elias could feel the weight of its gaze, sharp and cold, but he refused to look away. Human eyes did not flinch. Human hearts did not bow. "What do they want?" Mara asked quietly. "Us to give up," Elias said simply. "And we don't." The aliens made a movement, almost like a gesture. Elias could not understand it, but he felt the intent threat. He knew their fleet could appear at any moment. The humans in the convoy shifted nervously. Children hid behind carts. Traders clutched weapons they had never imagined using against beings like this. Elias took a deep breath and spoke in the calmest voice he could muster. "We are leaving. No one needs to get hurt. But we do not surrender. Not today. Not ever. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The alien scouts hesitated. Then, with a soundless wave of their arms, they disappeared back into the horizon. Mara exhaled shakily. That was too close. Elias nodded. Too close, he admitted. But we survived. And we will survive again. That's what humans do. They continued their journey as the sun sank behind jagged mountains, painting the plains in shades of red and gold. The convoy moved slowly, each person wary but determined. The planet was harsh, unforgiving, and beautiful, and it was theirs. That night, they camped under a canopy of stars. The sky on Caldera Prime was darker than any Earth sky. The twin suns leaving only faint traces of light in the west. Fires crackled in the wind, and the settlers whispered quietly among themselves, telling stories to keep fear at bay. Mara could not sleep. She stared at the device she carried, the small hum filling her ears. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down, heavier than any armor. If she activated it, it could disable an entire alien fleet without killing a soul. But the cost was hers alone to bear. Elias noticed her worry. It's heavy, he said softly. I can feel it from here. Enit, Mara turned to him. Easy. It's painful, she whispered, her voice trembling. He moved closer, sitting beside her by the fire. I know, he said gently. And that's why I won't let you do it alone. You're not carrying this burden by yourself. Not today, not ever. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. Humans were not meant to face the universe alone. And Elias Ward, for all his quiet strength, was proof of that truth. As the night deepened, the two sat in silence, listening to the wind, the faint hum of the device, and the distant call of alien creatures hunting under the twin moons. Tomorrow, they would face the frontier again. Tomorrow, they might encounter the full might of the Lyrax coalition. But tonight, they were alive. And that was enough. In the morning, Elias would rise first. He would scan the horizon, prepare the convoy, and lead them forward. Mara would follow, carrying knowledge that could save worlds. But she would not carry it alone. For on Caldera Prime, humanity thrived not because it had the strongest weapons or the fastest ships. Humanity thrived because it carried each other. And that made them stronger than any alien threat, no matter how deadly. The suns rose over the plains, dust swirled, fires burned low, and the hum of the device pulsed softly in the cool morning air. The journey had only just begun. Elias mounted his hover horse, his eyes on the horizon. Mara followed, clutching the case close to her chest. Behind them, the convoy stirred to life. Humans ready to face whatever the frontier threw at them. And somewhere in the distance, unseen and calculating, the alien fleet watched. They had not forgotten the humans. But neither had the humans forgotten who they were. Caldera Prime was wild, dangerous, and unforgiving. But it was human. And humans never surrendered. The morning light crept slowly across the red plains of Caldera Prime. Dust swirled around the convoy as the humans stirred awake. The twin suns climbed higher, warming the earth, revealing the jagged landscape that stretched endlessly in every direction. Elias Ward adjusted the reins of his hover horse, scanning the horizon with the same calm vigilance he had carried since arriving on this planet. Mara Kincaid walked beside him, her hands still gripping the metallic case that held her invention. She moved carefully, avoiding the loose rocks and scorched patches of earth. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, darted across the plains, aware that any moment could bring danger. Elias noticed her tension. You're thinking too far ahead, he said gently. Focus on the ground beneath your feet, and we'll handle the rest. Mara gave him a small, tired smile. It's hard not to, she admitted. Every step forward feels like it could be the wrong one. He nodded, understanding. She carried more than a device, she carried hope. And hope, in the wrong hands, could be the deadliest weapon in the universe. They continued through the plains, keeping to rocky trails that twisted between dry ravines and scrubby vegetation. The convoy followed behind, humans of all ages and professions, bound together by necessity and courage. Farmers rode hover buggies, mechanics clutched small toolkits, and children clung to their parents, eyes wide with curiosity and fear. As they reached a narrow canyon, Elias halted the group. He raised a hand, signaling everyone to stop. Ahead, the rocks formed a natural choke point. A perfect place for an ambush. Aliens? Mara whispered. Maybe, Elias replied. Maybe not, but it doesn't hurt to be cautious. He dismounted and began examining the canyon floor, scanning for tracks or signs of recent passage. Mara watched him quietly, her thoughts drifting to the device in her case. She had spent years developing it, a tool designed to neutralize enemy fleets without taking lives. It was elegant, brilliant, and deadly, but only if she used it herself. The problem was simple yet terrifying. Using it would slowly drain her energy, strain her mind, and put her in immense physical pain. Elias, noticing her distraction, gave her a small nudge. "You're not hiding it from me," he said. Mara looked down, fidgeting with the straps of her case. It's not something I want to use," she admitted softly. "Even if it could save everyone. It's painful." He sat beside her on a rock, studying her face. "Easy. It's painful," she whispered, repeating the words that had haunted her the night before. Elias's eyes softened. "I know," he said firmly, "and you won't have to face it alone. Whatever comes, I'll be there. We'll figure it out together." Her hands trembled slightly, but she nodded. Humans survived by relying on each other, and Elias was proof that trust was not weakness, it was strength. The convoy moved carefully through the canyon, the narrow path forcing them to travel slowly. Elias led, constantly watching the cliffs and crevices, knowing the aliens could strike at any moment. Hours passed. The silence broken only by the hum of the device and the distant whistling of the wind. By midday, the group reached a small plateau. It offered a clear view of the surrounding plains and the distant colony they were trying to reach. From here, Mara could see the faint shimmer of alien ships in the sky far off, but unmistakable. They were scouting, watching, waiting. "We're not far," Elias said, pointing to the colony in the distance. "But the hardest part is ahead. We have to get through their patrols." Mara gritted her teeth. "And if they see us, we make them hesitate," Elias said simply. "That's all we need." As the day stretched on, the convoy continued moving cautiously, stopping occasionally to rest and hydrate. The settlers were exhausted but determined. Elias made sure no one fell behind, speaking words of encouragement, sharing water, and checking that the children were safe. During one stop, Mara sat quietly beside Elias, looking out at the plains. "I can't stop thinking about the device," she admitted. "If I use it, even partially, it will hurt me, maybe more than I can bear. But if I don't, the colony could be destroyed." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "Mara, humanity survives because we carry the burden together. You're not alone. We'll find another way. We always do." Quote. She nodded, drawing strength from his words. Humanity's resilience was not in fighting alone, it was in protecting one another, no matter the cost. And Elias had shown her that courage was not about ignoring pain. It was about facing it with someone by your side. As the sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow over the canyon, the convoy reached a small settlement. It was abandoned, but it offered shelter for the night. Elias quickly organized watch rotations, ensuring everyone had time to rest without leaving anyone vulnerable. Mara found a quiet corner to sit and think. She opened the case slightly, peeking at the device inside. It hummed softly, almost as if it were alive. The thought of activating it made her chest ache. Every time she considered it, the pain in her body and mind reminded her that she was human, not a machine, not a weapon. Elias joined her again, kneeling beside the case. "You know," he said softly, "you don't have to do this today. Tomorrow might bring another solution. We survive by being patient, not reckless. Mara closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself to breathe, to imagine a way forward that didn't involve suffering alone. Humans had survived the harshest conditions for centuries. Why not now? On a planet of dust and fire. The night passed slowly, the twin moons rising to light the canyon with a pale silver glow. The wind whispered through the rocks, carrying the scent of earth and distant storms. Mara drifted into uneasy sleep, dreaming of the device and the weight of responsibility. Elias stayed awake, as always. His eyes scanned the shadows, watching for movement, listening for anything that might threaten the convoy. He thought about the aliens, about Mara, about humanity's stubborn refusal to give up. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they protected each other, even when it hurt. Morning came again, pale and fragile, breaking over the horizon like a promise. Elias and Mara rose, preparing to continue their journey. The canyon stretched behind them, dust rising in soft clouds as the convoy moved forward. The aliens were out there, somewhere, but the humans did not falter. Mara adjusted her case, feeling the familiar hum beneath her fingers. She could not ignore the device, but she also knew she would not face it alone. Elias was with her, and that made all the difference. They rode forward, the convoy moving in careful formation, the wind at their backs. The journey ahead was dangerous, the stakes higher than ever. But for now, they survived. And survival, in a universe that constantly tested humanity, was never a small victory. Elias glanced at Mara, his expression steady. "We'll get through this," he said. She nodded, her fear tempered by determination. "Together," she whispered, and as the suns climbed higher, casting long shadows over the plains of Caldera Prime, the humans continued forward. Every step was a choice, every choice a testament to who they were. A species that refused to bow, that refused to abandon one another, and that carried hope as fiercely as any weapon. The alien scouts could wait. Humanity did not hurry. Humanity endured, and that endurance would carry them farther than any enemy could imagine. For on this wild, red frontier, humans thrived not because they had the strongest weapons, not because they were the fastest, but because they protected each other, even in the face of pain, and that made them unstoppable. The wind carried a strange chill that morning, slipping through the canyon and raising goosebumps on the backs of the humans as they continued their journey. The twin suns of Caldera Prime had barely cleared the horizon, and yet the landscape already seemed sharp, unforgiving, as if warning them that danger was near. Elias Ward rode at the front, eyes scanning every crevice and shadow. His instincts told him that the alien scouts were no longer just observing, they were planning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The humans behind him rode silently, the weight of the journey and the unknown pressing down on them. Mara Kincaid stayed close to Elias, her hands never leaving the metallic case. She felt the hum of the device beneath her fingers, like the heartbeat of something alive. Every pulse reminded her of the power she held, the choice she could make, and every choice carried a cost she could not ignore. "We're close to the pass," Elias said quietly. "After that, the path is open to the colony. But this is where they'll try to stop us." Mara swallowed hard. She had known this moment was coming. The point at which humanity's determination would be tested against a force stronger than anything they had faced before. She clenched the case tighter, feeling its weight not just physically, but morally. She could stop the aliens without killing anyone, but the process would drain her, and the pain would be hers alone. Elias glanced at her, noticing her hesitation. "You don't have to do it," he said firmly. "Not now. Not ever. There's always another way. As long as we stand together." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting both fear and trust. "Easy. It's painful," she whispered, repeating the words that had haunted her through every mile of this journey. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know," he said softly, "and that's why we won't let you face it alone. Whatever happens, we face it together. The convoy entered the narrow pass, rocks towering on either side, shadows stretching across the dusty path. The air felt heavy, and the humans moved with careful precision. Every step was measured, every movement deliberate. They were determined to survive without giving in to fear. Suddenly, movement flashed across the cliffs above. Alien scouts appeared, dropping silently from ledges and rocks. Their forms were sleek, gray, and fast, moving with precise coordination. The humans halted, tension snapping tight across the convoy like a drawn bowstring. Elias raised a hand, signaling for calm. "Don't panic," he said. "Stay together, stay calm." The aliens advanced, but they did not attack outright. They were testing, probing, looking for weaknesses. Elias could see their strategy force the humans to surrender, to use the device, to cross a line that humanity never crossed. Mara's hands trembled slightly on the case. She could activate it, disable the aliens, and save the convoy. But she knew what it would cost her. The pain would be intense, a slow drain of her energy and strength, and the risk of permanent harm was high. Elias sensed her fear. "You don't have to," he said again. "We'll find another way." The aliens hesitated, as if sensing the humans' resolve. Then, one of them moved forward, stepping into the path with a clear challenge. Elias dismounted and stepped toward it. His stance calm but firm. He wanted to communicate, to show the aliens that humanity did not need to be cruel to survive. The alien tilted its head, watching him. Elias did not flinch. "We are not your enemies," he said in a firm, steady voice. "We will not surrender. We will not harm you unless you force our hand, but we will protect ourselves and those we care about." The alien made a low sound, a vibration that carried through the rocks. It was a warning, but Elias did not retreat. He stepped closer, showing no fear. Humans survived not because they bowed to threats, but because they faced them with courage. Behind him, Mara watched, torn between fear and determination. The device pulsed softly, a reminder of the choice she could make. Every instinct in her body screamed to act, but Elias's calm presence grounded her. Humanity had survived by protecting one another, not by sacrificing themselves alone. Suddenly, one of the alien scouts darted forward, moving too fast for the human eye to follow. It struck at the convoy, attempting to separate them. But the settlers were prepared. Mechanics and farmers, traders and children alike, moved instinctively. They formed a line, shields raised, tools repurposed as defensive weapons. Elias drew a small energy pistol, not to kill, but to block and redirect. He moved with precision. Every step measured, every action calculated. The humans had no intention of surrendering, but neither did they intend to kill. Their strength was in coordination, in courage, in the refusal to cross a line they would regret. Mara watched the chaos, her hands shaking. The device could stop this in an instant, but she would feel every moment of it. She looked at Elias, who nodded ever so slightly, as if telling her that it was okay to wait. Humanity's way was not to rush, but to endure. The alien pulled back, realizing that the humans would not break. They were not weak, and they were not afraid. They did not need to strike to win, they needed only to stand, to endure, to protect each other. Elias addressed the alien directly. "You see us, and you see fear, but you do not see weakness. We are humans. We survive by standing together, by protecting each other, by enduring pain for one another. That is what makes us strong, and that is a line we will not cross." The alien paused, its head tilting as if processing his words. Then, almost imperceptibly, it signaled the others. The scouts retreated, slipping back to the cliffs above. They had underestimated the humans' resolve. They had expected fear, desperation, and betrayal. But humans endured because they had heart, because they carried each other, because they refused to sacrifice one of their own without cause. Mara exhaled, her body trembling with relief. We didn't have to use it, she whispered. Almost in disbelief, Elias nodded. We never do. Not unless there is truly no other way. The convoy regrouped, dust settling around them as they resumed their cautious journey. The aliens had tested them, but humanity had passed. They had shown that strength was not just in power, but in restraint, in courage, and in the willingness to protect others. By the time the suns reached their zenith, the convoy reached the open plains beyond the pass. The threat of immediate ambush was gone, but the journey was far from over. Mara kept the device close, but she no longer felt the same fear. Elias had reminded her that she was not alone, and that together, humanity could endure anything. That evening, they camped near a small water source, the sound of flowing water bringing a rare sense of peace. Children played quietly, humans talked softly, and Mara finally allowed herself a moment of rest. Elias sat beside her again. You did well, he said. You didn't give in to fear. That's what makes humans different. That's what makes us strong. In result, she smiled faintly, feeling the weight of the day lift slightly. Easy. It's painful, she whispered again. But this time, her voice carried not just fear, but understanding. Pain was part of being human, but humans endured it, together. The night fell, quiet and calm. The twin moons rose over the plains, reflecting silver light on the faces of the humans. They were tired, but unbroken. They were scared, but determined, and they were together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Lyrax coalition would not forget the humans who defied them, but tonight, humanity had shown its strength, not in weapons, but in courage, endurance, and the refusal to betray each other. Mara looked at Elias, her heart steadying. Together, she said softly. He nodded. Always together. And as the winds whispered through the plains, carrying the dust and the faint hum of the device, humanity's resolve shone brighter than any alien fleet. On Caldera Prime, humans survived not because they were the fastest, not because they were the strongest, but because they carried each other, and that made them unstoppable. The convoy rested, ready to face whatever the universe would throw at them next, confident that as long as they stood together, there was no challenge too great, no enemy too fearsome, and no pain too unbearable to overcome. The morning dawned cool and quiet on Caldera Prime. Dust swirled across the plains, glowing faintly in the light of the twin suns. The convoy had stopped near a small canyon, where water trickled through rocks, offering a rare moment of peace. The humans had survived the first real test from the alien scouts, but Elias Ward knew this was only the beginning. Today we move smarter, he told the convoy as everyone gathered around. They tested us yesterday. They expected fear, and we gave them courage. But now, we take the initiative. Mara Kincaid listened closely, her hands gripping the metallic case. She could feel the hum of the device pulsing softly, a constant reminder of the power she held. It could stop the aliens instantly, but the cost would fall on her alone. She had survived fear before, but this was different. The weight of responsibility pressed on her chest like a stone. Elias continued, We don't fight them the way they expect. Humans survive because we work together. Every one of us has a role. And together, we are stronger than any single enemy. The settlers nodded, energized by his words. Farmers, mechanics, traders, and even children understood that they had to rely on each other. They had no choice. Humanity survived by standing together, not by facing the universe alone. As the convoy prepared to move, distant shapes appeared on the horizon. The alien scouts had returned, this time in greater numbers. They moved in formation, their sleek gray forms glinting in the sunlight. But the humans were ready. Elias rode to the front. Hold your positions, he called out. We use what we have. But no one faces this alone. The aliens advanced, but this time, the humans did not wait for them to strike first. Engineers quickly set up makeshift barriers using hover buggies and equipment from the convoy. Farmers used their tools to create noise distractions, drawing some scouts away from the main path. Children and traders worked together, moving supplies and reinforcing positions. Everyone had a role, everyone mattered. Mara stayed close to Elias, watching as her fellow humans worked in harmony. She could feel the weight of the device, the hum of power in her hands. Every instinct told her to act, to disable the aliens before they reached the convoy. But Elias's calm presence reminded her that there were other ways that did not require her to suffer alone. The first alien scouts reached the makeshift defenses. They moved quickly, attempting to breach the lines, but humans responded with precision. A farmer rolled a heavy crate, blocking a narrow pass. A mechanic activated a small energy field, forcing the aliens to retreat temporarily. Elias fired his energy pistol, not to kill, but to redirect. His movements were exact, calculated, and fearless. Humans had survived countless battles by protecting each other, and today was no different. Mara's hands trembled. She could stop the aliens instantly, but she did not. She watched as humans relied on each other, as courage and coordination became their weapons. Slowly, she realized that humanity's true power was not in any device or weapon, it was in unity. The alien scouts hesitated, clearly surprised by the humans' organized resistance. Elias seized the opportunity. He rode forward, moving quickly between barriers and people, directing the convoy like a conductor with an orchestra. Every person had a purpose, and every action counted. Mara stepped forward, her voice steady. "We can use the device, but it doesn't have to hurt anyone completely," she said. "We can share the load." Elias looked at her, his eyes steady. "Then we do it together." With careful coordination, they activated the device partially. Energy flowed, not just through Mara, but through modified circuits set up by the engineers. The hum was intense, vibrating through the air, but no one person bore the full cost. Mara felt a sting, a tingle of exhaustion, but it was manageable because the burden was shared. The alien scouts faltered, their movements disorganized, confused by the humans' ingenuity. They had expected one person to act alone, to break under pressure. Instead, they faced an entire species that refused to bend, refused to harm one of their own, and refused to surrender. One by one, the alien scouts retreated. Some moved back to the cliffs, regrouping. Others hovered, unsure of how to proceed against humans who would not break, who would not betray one another. The convoy cheered softly, relief washing over them. Humans had survived another attack. But this time, they had done more than survive. They had shown their strength, not in weapons, not in numbers, not in speed, but in heart. Mara exhaled, feeling the energy drain from the device. She had contributed, but she had not carried the burden alone. Elias stood beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "See?" he said gently. "Humans endure, but we don't endure alone. That's why we survive." The settlers worked quickly to dismantle the temporary defenses, moving supplies and checking for any remaining scouts. Children helped where they could, learning that courage was not about fighting alone, but about standing together. By midday, the convoy resumed its journey across the plains. The alien scouts had retreated, but Elias knew they were only watching, waiting for another opportunity. The humans moved with confidence, their spirits bolstered by success, but their caution remained. They stopped near a small ridge to rest. Mara opened the case slightly, feeling the device's hum fade. She looked at Elias. I think I understand now," she said softly. "The device is powerful, but we are stronger when we share the burden. That's humanity." Elias nodded. "Exactly. Humans survive not because we are the strongest, or the fastest, or the smartest. We survive because we protect each other, because we share pain, and because we endure together." Mara smiled faintly. For the first time, she felt hope not just for the colony, but for humanity itself. She had feared the device, feared the pain it could cause, but now she understood its purpose. It was not just a weapon, it was a tool for cooperation, a symbol of human ingenuity and unity. As the convoy continued across the plains, the twin suns began to set, painting the landscape in shades of red and gold. Dust rose behind them in gentle clouds, and the wind carried the hum of the device, a quiet reminder of their shared strength. That night, they camped in a small hollow, safe for the moment. Fires crackled, and humans shared food and stories. Laughing softly despite the danger they had faced, Mara sat beside Elias, looking at the stars that stretched endlessly across the sky. "Tomorrow will be harder," Elias said quietly. "But we've learned something important. We survived together. And no enemy can take that from us." Mara nodded. "Together," she whispered, her hands resting on the case. Elias smiled. "Always together." The night passed, calm and quiet. The twin moons rose over the plains, casting silver light on the humans as they slept. The convoy was tired, but unbroken. They were cautious, but confident. And they were united. Somewhere far off, the alien fleet watched, calculating and observing. They had underestimated humans once, but humans were not predictable. Humans did not fight the way other species fought. They endured, they protected, and they adapted. The humans of Caldera Prime had shown their strength not in destruction, but in cooperation. They had demonstrated that the most powerful force in the universe was not weapons or speed, but the refusal to betray one's own kind. As the twin moons climbed higher, Mara felt a quiet pride. She had faced fear, she had faced pain, but she had not faced it alone. Humanity had survived another test, and the lessons they had learned would carry them further than any weapon could. Elias stood and looked out over the plains, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We move again at dawn," he said. "The final leg to the colony will be the hardest. But we know what we can do. We know who we are." Mara stood beside him, feeling the strength of every human around her. "We endure," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "And we endure together." The convoy rested under the twin moons, the fires glowing softly in the cool night air. Tomorrow, they would face the alien fleet again. But tonight, humanity had proven something greater than fear or strength. They had proven that unity, courage, and heart were the most powerful forces in the universe. On Caldera Prime, humans thrived not because they were the strongest, not because they were the fastest, and not because they were the smartest. Humans thrived because they carried each other. And together, there was no challenge too great, no enemy too fierce, and no pain too heavy to endure. The plains were silent except for the hum of the device, soft and steady, echoing humanity's resolve. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the horizon, the alien scouts watched, learning for the first time that humans did not fight alone, and that made them unstoppable. The sun rose slowly over Caldera Prime, casting long shadows across the red plains. The wind carried the familiar scent of dust and metal, mingling with the faint hum of the device that Mara Kincaid still carried close to her chest. Today, they would reach the colony, but the alien fleet, observing from the distance, would not let them pass easily. Elias Ward rode at the front, his coat flapping in the wind, eyes scanning the horizon. Behind him, the convoy moved with determination. Farmers, traders, mechanics, and children, all of them had endured attacks, fear, and uncertainty. Today, they would show the universe what humanity could do when united. Mara walked beside Elias, feeling both exhaustion and resolve. The partial activation of the device yesterday had reminded her that strength could be shared. She no longer feared it alone. The humans around her had carried part of the burden, just as they had carried each other through every obstacle. Elias glanced at her. "Are you ready?" he asked. She nodded, her eyes bright. "As ready as I'll ever be." The aliens appeared on the horizon, sleek and gray, their ships glinting in the morning sun. They moved in formation, precise and deadly, intending to force the humans into surrender. But the humans were ready. Elias took a deep breath. "Remember," he said to the convoy, "we survive by standing together. We do not fight alone. We endure together, and that is why we will win." The convoy spread out strategically, using the terrain to their advantage. Engineers and mechanics had set up energy barriers, while farmers and traders created distractions with hover buggies and sound generators. Children and volunteers carried supplies, moving quietly but purposefully. Every person had a role. Every action mattered. Mara gripped the device, feeling its hum rise as the alien fleet advanced. The energy was intense, but manageable. She could use it to neutralize the enemy. But this time, she would not carry the burden alone. She had learned the human way. No one faced the universe by themselves. The aliens descended, moving faster now, trying to intimidate the humans. But Elias stood firm. He raised his hand, signaling for the convoy to hold their positions. The humans did not flinch. They had learned courage not by fighting blindly, but by protecting each other. Mara activated the device partially, routing energy through the modified circuits the engineers had set up. A soft pulse of light spread across the battlefield, creating a barrier that slowed the alien fleet. The aliens faltered, confused by a defense that caused no harm, yet prevented them from advancing. Elias moved forward, guiding the convoy like a conductor directing an orchestra. Farmers rolled crates, engineers activated energy fields, and children passed messages between groups. Every person worked together, every action coordinated, every step calculated. The alien fleet adjusted, trying to flank the humans, but they could not break the line. Every attempt was met with strategy, courage, and cooperation. Mara felt the energy hum through her, a faint sting reminding her of the power she held, but the burden was shared. No one person suffered alone. Hours passed, and the battle continued. The aliens, who had expected fear and surrender, were bewildered by the humans' resilience. They had underestimated the species that would rather share pain than betray each other. Elias looked at Mara. "We're almost there," he said. "Just a little further. Stay with me." Mara nodded, her hands steady. She could see the colony in the distance, the buildings rising like a promise against the harsh plains. The humans had fought not with violence, but with unity, ingenuity, and determination. That was their strength. The alien fleet made one final attempt to strike. Ships dove closer, sending small energy pulses meant to intimidate. But the humans did not panic. They adjusted the barriers, redirected energy, and moved in perfect coordination. Mara increased the device's output slightly, enough to slow the aliens without causing harm to anyone in the convoy. Elias rode forward, leading a charge of the convoy's strongest volunteers. They moved with purpose, blocking the alien path, creating safe passages for the rest of the humans. Farmers, traders, and mechanics followed, forming a living wall of determination. The alien scouts, seeing the humans' coordination and courage, faltered. Their calculations had not accounted for this. A species that fought not with anger, but with heart. A species that refused to harm one of their own. A species that endured together. One by one, the alien ships retreated, pulling back to regroup with their fleet. They had not expected humans to survive without crossing the line, without surrender, without sacrificing their own, and that realization would follow them across the stars. The convoy cheered softly, exhaustion and relief washing over them. Humans had survived not just by endurance, but by cooperation. They had demonstrated that strength was not measured in firepower alone, but in heart, courage, and unity. Mara exhaled, feeling the energy of the device fade. She had contributed, but she had not carried the burden alone. Elias stood beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "See," he said softly, "we endure, but we do not endure alone. That is why humanity survives." The convoy approached the colony, moving through the gates that had been guarded and maintained despite the constant threat. Settlers cheered, children ran freely. And the people who had been waiting for reinforcements saw hope arrive not with weapons, but with courage. Inside the colony, leaders gathered to hear the story. Mara shared the details of the device, explaining how the humans had neutralized the aliens without unnecessary harm. The colony's engineers began redesigning it to share the energy loads safely among multiple users, ensuring no one person would ever bear the cost alone. Elias addressed the gathered humans. "We survived because we worked together," he said. "We protected each other. We endured the pain, the fear, and the uncertainty, but we endured together. That is what makes us human. And that is what makes us strong." Mara smiled, watching the faces of the people around her. Children, settlers, engineers, and farmers, everyone had contributed. Humanity had survived because they had chosen unity, courage, and compassion over fear and selfishness. Outside, the alien fleet had retreated beyond the horizon. They had learned a lesson they would not forget. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and terrifying, not because they sought war, but because they protected each other fiercely. Elias mounted his hoverhorse once more, looking out over the plains. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "The galaxy will hear our story. They will see what humans are capable of, not just in war, but in endurance, ingenuity, and heart." Mara stood beside him, feeling the warmth of the morning sun on her face. "We endured," she said. "Yes," Elias replied, "and we endured together." The colony began to rebuild, stronger than before. The device was redesigned, safer, and shared among those willing to use it. The humans of Caldera Prime had proven that courage, unity, and heart were more powerful than fear, more powerful than any weapon. Stories of their journey spread, first through the colony, then to other human settlements across the stars. Humans were not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most technologically advanced, but they were the only species who would rather share pain than betray one of their own. And that truth spread faster than any fleet. Mara finally allowed herself to rest, leaning against Elias as the twin suns began to set. They had survived fear. They had survived alien threats. And they had survived the weight of responsibility. And they had done it together. As night fell over Caldera Prime, fires glowed softly across the colony. Children slept soundly, settlers shared stories, and Mara looked at the stars, imagining the countless worlds that might one day know of humanity's courage. Elias smiled faintly. "Legends aren't born from weapons," he said. "They're born from endurance, heart, and the choice to protect each other. That's humanity." Mara nodded. "Together," she whispered. "Yes," Elias replied. "Always together." And on Caldera Prime, under the twin moons and endless stars, humanity stood victorious, not because they had destroyed their enemies, but because they had survived with heart, courage, and unity. And that made them unstoppable. The plains were silent, except for the soft hum of the device, a quiet reminder that humans endured together, no matter the challenge. The alien fleet might return, but the humans of Caldera Prime were ready. They had learned the greatest lesson of all. Humans survive because they protect each other. Humans endure because they stand together. Humans thrive because heart and courage are stronger than fear. And in that truth, the galaxy would remember the starbound West, not for conquest or war, but for the courage of humans who refused to surrender, who refused to betray, and who endured together.